Gary, once again another pressure-packed game against Box Hill. Unfortunately, this time we ended up on the wrong side of the ledger.
Yeah, we did, Pete, and of course we gifted them a extremely valuable win by our ineptness going inside 50, our mistakes, our lack of conversion, and a side that's in the top four. The doors left open and they just took it, and we just allowed them pretty much in the last half of the third, and probably for a fair bit of the last, reasonably unpressured efforts, and they won the game. So you've got to give credit to Box Hill.
There's the old saying of flicking the switch in the game. It seemed to happen at some stage during the third quarter. I think it was Kelly of Box Hill ran to his own player, stopped play for a few minutes, stretcher was called, both sides got into a huddle. We spoke to one of the Box Hill players. He said that was for them the chance to chat and cool things down. It seemed to change the game that moment.
Yeah, that's probably one of the moments, but I think also too, 1 goal 5 up until that point from memory also changed the moment. And that's been an issue for us all year, and I'm sick to death of it, to be quite truthful. And the care or lack of care that our goal kickers, and that's every player that has an opportunity to kick goals, has got to be better than that. So that's a real mental weakness for us, and it's just cost us dearly again. And if you go into Frankston, North Ballarat, and also to Collingwood, it's been 4 games now where we have not shown enough skill and also to care and discipline to actually score goals.
And the strange thing was, we seemed to be on early, particularly Dean Galea, 4 goals from his first 4 kicks.
Yeah, no, he was very good early, and of course then they started, which they do anyway, they win enough ball out of their defence to orchestrate, I guess, runs forward, and Spanger was a perfect example late in that last quarter where he came out, attacked the ball, and that was one of the disappointing things in the end. I thought there were clutch moments that they really displayed a real fierce desire to win that contest, whereas we were just happy to compete. That's how it looked like to me sitting on the sidelines. So for all the good work that we went forward with last week, we've actually just shoved that down the toilet.
An interesting proposition. We have a week off now, and then we come back and we play Werribee at Werribee like we did earlier in the year, where I guess there's some demons to address.
Oh, there is. And of course then you look at Geelong the following week, and then you look at obviously Coburg away the following week after that. So nothing's guaranteed, and I'd thought we'd turned the corner a little bit last week. It just is ridiculous that we found out Friday morning that the game had been shifted. If that had been the case on Thursday night, I would have actually looked at the selection different because of the ground here. And the board, the Port Melbourne board, and also to the council just need to get on the same goddamn page, because that's now 3 games that we've had taken away from us, and it is just ridiculous that certain people don't seem to understand that this competition is the second best in the land, not some Hicksville team that actually plays what I believe is more often than not very, very good footy. So until someone does something about it, we're always going to be running into roadblocks. And I know this is digressing off the game itself, but it's just so annoying to the players that we consistently have things thrown in front of us, yet they are unbelievable in their ability to keep coming up. But today at home, you win versus having the game shifted, and it once again has ramifications.
Luncheon at the Melbourne Football Club. We'd like to have a special guest. Today, ladies and gentlemen, our guest began his coaching career back in 1987 when he coached the under-17s and 18s at the Spotswood Football Club at the old Footscray District League, and won a flag in 91 and was league representative coach in the under-16s in 1992. He was the coach of the under-19s of the Melbourne Football Club for seasons 1993 and 1994. Including the premiers of 1993, and of course league representative, squad assistant coach and selector in 1994. He ended up being an assistant coach of the Western Jets in the TAP Cup from 95 through to 97, working under Leon Harris, 98 and 99, He was reserves coach, assistant coach, and asked me help at fitness coach, also at the Wingstown Football Club, working under Merv Keane. In 2000-2001, he was chairman of selectors at the Western Jets, and then back to Wingstown from 2002 to 2009, where he was a forward scout for Willie, assisting senior coach Brad Gotch. And of course, in 2011, he took up the senior coaching role at the Avalon Football Club in the Central Highlands Football League. He was known as a gritty ruckman in his day in the Footscray District Football League, earning the nickname Crackers because of his short fuse and fiery nature. Ladies and gentlemen, will you please welcome the coach of the 1993 Under-19 Port Melbourne Premiership side, Michael Boyd. Michael, welcome. Ruckman, what are you, a Collingwood 6-footer?
Yeah, very much so, mate.
True to the form. Before we talk about your coaching, what was your footy career like? What was your footy background as a player?
As a player, I started late in my life. I was probably 21 when I started playing football at Spottswood. So I played for around about 6 years. Could jump a bit and take a mark, but certainly couldn't kick. So that's why I ended up as ruckman at the club.
All the prerequisites you need.
That's right.
You ended up taking up coaching the 17s and 18s. How did that come about? Because traditionally, a junior coach is normally one of the parents that end up getting selected. How did you end up with the 17s and 18s coaching role?
No, I was at that stage training as a phys ed teacher, so it was pretty much an extension of that, I think. And I was good friends with Brendan Curry. We sort of grew up together, and he wangled me in one night and got me half drunk, I think, and signed a little contract for 2 years to do the under-17s. But it was a wonderful start to a fantastic experience through football.
At the Woodsman, and then of course in '93 you became coach of the Port Melbourne Football Club. How did that happen? These days we hear about coaches having to go through several interviews, PowerPoint presentations, all of that mess. How did you end up getting selected as coach of the '93 under-19s at Port Melbourne?
Well, I was running a pizza shop, not all that successfully for, well, I ended up putting for 20 years, and in Laverton, and I was living in Seabrook, and I got a phone call one night from an interesting character. Most of you will probably remember him. His name was Peter Madden. He was in charge of recruiting for the rebuild, I think, of the Port Melbourne Football Club back in 1993, and he was responsible for getting many of the players, or for our team together. He was a fanatic on football, had pretty much every kid that's played football in the state, I reckon, under the age of 21, I reckon he had a file card on them, knew what height they were, what weight they were. Well, he apparently had come to watch a grand final that I coached in, and he rang me up in his typical fashion and made me feel like $1 million, and told me how good it was going to be at Port Melbourne, and convinced me that it was a good idea to cross the bridge to come across, and he promised me that he'd put together a fine team of players, that he'd spent probably 12 months working through the Footscray District League under-18s at that time, and had picked out many characters to join a training list. So that was pretty much how it happened over the phone. Came down to the club one night, met him and Peter Saltrey, and met Damien Drum, who was a really big influence on my life. I know that in those early days. So yeah, from then on it was meet the players. We had our first training session up the road at Port Colts ground. It was an interesting mix. There were players from anywhere from Melton right through to pretty much South Melbourne. I think we had a couple come from South Melbourne at that point. They'd all been opponents all their life through junior football. Most of them didn't like each other, I think. So we thought, I was very lucky, I must say, I was very lucky to have an assistant coach whose name was Paul Martin. I'm sure some of you here would remember Paul. He was a fanatic on football himself, and we got them together and we decided that the best way to do it was to train their backsides off, which we did. We probably had a very fit side by the time we started that year. And the other key thing we did was took them away on a camp to, where was it? Melbourne. It was a police camp, which funnily enough, I don't know how we got into the police camp, but certainly it might have been police taking us out of there. I remember it was a one-night job. We went down on the Saturday, and we were lucky to get there with the driving capacity of some of them. And by I think 1:30 in the morning, when I was tucked up in bed, the fight started. It was a good dose of alcohol and a good dose of intensity. I think they probably got it out of their system. And we had a couple of practice games. If I'm going on too long. A couple of practice games. Spent our first two official matches we lost. I think we were trying to work them out before Springvale and somewhat at Dandenong. And then after the second round, we didn't lose a game right through to the grand final. And I think it was a credit to the group. There was a bunch of fellas who were able to mould together and are very committed to show success at Port Melbourne. And I think a lot of that came from the energy that Damien Drum had at the club that year. We had some wonderful players like David King, who were really good role models for everybody, and Drummy used to take a lot of interest in the under-19, so I'd often be halfway through a talk with him, and here he'd be sitting at the back of the group and listening intensely, and he'd ring me during the week and we'd talk about those things. And, his energy. I remember the first night we trained on this magnificent ground out there. I pulled parked out the front, dragged my bag in, and Drummy drove up in his big ute because he had Damien Drum's garden sheds down in Hoppers Crossing, so he had his big ute, and of course he had keys to the gate, and he was able to drive into the ground. Well, he drove into the ground with that much energy, jumped out of his car. I remember seeing him throw heavy bags over the fence, and hula hoops, and he had all sorts of things, but you could just tell he was here to make a difference at the football club, and I think that everybody who played in our group, in their own little way, wanted to make a difference to the footy club too, because Port Melbourne at that point had pretty poor history in the under-19s, so winning wasn't something that a core group of under-19 supporters were used to. And we had that core group come pretty much to every match.
That's interesting. You talk about the under-19s. We're now in the modern day of football with TAC Cups. There's no more under-19s. How close were the under-19s boys to the senior group?
Probably not so much to the senior players themselves. They trained on the same nights, but it was more the influence of their coach. I think we would be a separate group training in a separate area. But Damien's sort of influence and enthusiasm, the way he worked as a role model with the players, I think was terrific. We had a really good president, Peter Saltry, at that point, who didn't stand for any mucking around. I think everybody sort of realised that we were here to do a good job, and that's what we did.
You seem calm now, well spoken, but I have noticed you saying that as a coach you're renowned and revered among your players and support staff for possessing and spraying more saliva than an adult hippopotamus, and developing a white dribbly froth at the corners of your mouth during your half-time rant. How are you calm now? Is it white line fever? As soon as you hear the siren goes, a completely different personality takes you over?
I think there was a little bit of white line fever in my behaviour in football, and probably I would have been a little bit worse in the coaching box. So a little bit more controlled on the ground, but I think it's just part of my character. So,
spitting in the mouth.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so I think it's just part of my character. I like the competitiveness of football, and we were here to do our best, and we certainly were here to win.
Well, the boys here will vouch as witness. Who do you think you gave the biggest spray during your 2 years here?
I don't know if I could pick one instance. I do remember we developed a little bit of complacency just before the finals, and we were playing, I think, Sandringham. And we went out the first quarter and we looked a little bit off tempo. By the second quarter, somebody in the coach's box had told me that 40% of them had been out to the tunnel the night before to celebrate a beautiful, successful season. So I was a little bit annoyed when I heard that. And yeah, I think the best spray I ever gave was that day at half time, and I was that wild and probably that out of control that I ordered them into the showers, and they all had to stand under a cold shower for 5 or so minutes to wake them all up, and that ended up being a pretty good tactic to use, because we came out and won that match and ensured that we remained undefeated from round 2.
Well, they said use of the halftime shower spread quickly among the football rumour mill on the Saturday afternoon. Apparently made its way to the press machine that afternoon with Scotty Palmer.
Yeah, it was featured in the Sunday article that Scotty Palmer has. Keep on punching, I think it was called. And yeah, so we made the press that way. So it's always sort of hung with me, that tactic, I think.
So no emissions the next week, out hypothermia?
No. There was none of that. We were well looked after by, I think everybody should put their hands together for a person I know who supported the under-19s a lot longer, or for a long time before we arrived. But it was one of the best head trainers we ever had, and that's Tony Stewart, and I'm really glad to see. I'm sure if there was any signs of hypothermia, Tony would have been right onto it on the first Tuesday.
So, grand final day. Do you still remember that day at Princess Park?
Yeah, I remember every minute of it. In fact, we had breakfast over the road at one of the, I can't remember the name of the place now.
University House.
Which house? University House, that's right, it was too. Very fancy meal it was for most of us. We probably never sat down for a decent breakfast before. And, but I remember we crossed the road from that breakfast, across Princess, what is it, main road there to go to Princess. Royal Parade. And it was belting down rain. We had really good, strong, big players who were relying on a nice hot day for us, because we were pretty quick at moving the ball. We had some really good tall timber in the forward line and back line, and it was belting down rain. It was a horrible day. But every one of us, I think, as we crossed Royal Parade, knew that we were going to win that game. I don't think there was any doubt in anybody's mind, especially ours, and I think that's what self-belief is all about. We worked so hard all year and got to a point where our fitness was so good that I think we felt like we were undefeatable, and to win the game like we did, well, I think it was 40-something points in that sort of weather was a tribute to every one of the players in the squad.
Talking about the players, for those in the room, so that we know for the record, who were your star players out of the side?
Oh. Well, I'll tell you a little story. The star at the moment is definitely Fuge. Put your hand up there, Fuge. Fuge has organised the 20th reunion. In fact, if anybody's looking for a personal assistant, I'm tipping he's probably the best you can get. Well, Fuge on grand final day was awarded best player on the ground, a bit like the under-19 Norm Smith medalist. And there's been a bit of controversy since then. The captain, Bradley Morton, claims that he was easily the best man on the ground. Well, funnily enough, about a month ago we found the grand final video, which we collected from Paul Martin, who was my assistant coach that I spoke about before, and had it transferred into the modern day language of DVD. And of course, Bradley Morton has all the stats of the game. He now has a really good case to put up at VCAT, he tells me. And he's now going to make a claim for best and fairest, or best player on the day in the grand final. So, there were a number of really talented footballers amongst us, and it was good to see them get fit and play their best footy and play it with a passion together as a team. And like I said, we were undefeatable for sure when we walked across that Royal Parade that morning, and bad luck for Williamstown, quite frankly.
No tears in this room, no tears whatsoever. Before we let you go, Michael, I mean, you got boys that are 18, 19 years old, growing bodies, they need to be fed. What's this racket with you and a pizza shop?
We had a pizza shop and a Chinese restaurant in Footscray originally. It was called So-and-so's, and we ended up with one in Laverton as well. So I was running that whilst I was coaching. So we used to, every Thursday night, we'd have a meal together, which was usually leftover pizza, leftover pasta and leftover rice. That sustained us through the year. So yeah, that was a nice little activity that we would do before each game.
And got tipped off to say that some of the players were actually employed in your old pizza shop?
Yeah, many of them were employed, some for only a week. And some for a long period of time. In fact, one of them still works there, even though I don't own the place. So he's probably had a 12-year career delivering pizzas.
Will you name names?
No, I won't be naming names.
Don't worry, we'll after half a dozen studies. Well, Michael, we thank you very much for your time, for attending today's luncheon here at the Port Melbourne Football Club, and once again we congratulate you on the 20th anniversary of your premiership. Congratulations.
Borough TV is a Port Melbourne Football Club production.